And my first comment to the member for Lyons is, if you want to find out why people aren't staying, take time, go out and try it and see for yourself. Rather than stand here and ask questions, go and actually try doing the manual work and you'll see why. You'll also see why in fruit picking across this nation people aren't taking up the job, because this government's loosened the laws on 457 visas, allowing people before, if you had a company where if you wanted to bring in 10 people on 457 visas, you had to apply and you got permits for 10. Now this government's loosened the rules that you can apply for 10 457 visa workers, but you can bring in 50 and that's okay. So that's a huge difference, where the people are able to come in, get a job for a certain period of time, as soon as it's finished, bang, lock the door, send them home. And that's why a lot of these jobs are being taken by 457 workers, because companies that don't want to employ Australians and are happy to employ 457 visa workers have now got an extra opportunity to do this. But on this bill, I want to talk about this cruel and heartless targeting of vulnerable members of our community. Enforcing these stricter measures and harsher penalties for those receiving payments is a typical action of this government. This is a government which subjects jobless people to punitive measures rather than helping them to address and improve their situation and therefore their future prospects for financial independence. These amendments demonstrate very clearly the contempt that this government has for the jobless. The Abbott government is obviously stuck in a time warp, because the views that we've heard opposite is that everyone without a job is a dole bludger. Those opposite have no idea what it's like for people to be without a job, for young people trying for the first time to enter a highly competitive workforce, for people who deal with psychiatric problems or mental illness and trying their hardest just to survive, or for homeless people trying to break out of that cycle of poverty, for Indigenous people who face a wide range of long-term employment barriers, or for sole parents who are trying to make ends meet as well as juggle their family commitments. For some people, gaining employment does not happen quickly, especially with this government's systematic attacks on manufacturing jobs across this nation. And these vicious penalties for those on Centrelink typify the hypocrisy of the Abbott government. They'll slash and burn legitimate essential payments for those who most need it. But simultaneously, at the same time as they talk about how this will save $20 million to this budget and we have to get rid of the leaners and help the lifters, but at the same time, Acting Deputy Speaker, this government is going to give people on high incomes $50,000 to have a baby. That's $1,923 a week, or $50 an hour, to sit at home and have a baby, while those who can least afford it are the ones being hit. So the real lifters are the people at the bottom end, the people on fixed incomes, the people on pensions, the people on low incomes, to cover those at the top end who really can afford it. Because it doesn't matter if you earn $200,000 a year or you earn $30,000 a year. The cost of essentials are the same. The cost of electricity is the same, the cost of food is the same, the cost of petrol is the same. Of course, now it's going to go up 1.7 cents a litre, because this government, despite saying before the election there will be no increases in taxes, in actual fact the Foreign Minister stood here and said, we're not doing it, it's all scurrilous, it's not going to happen. What do they do on the budget? Just like everything else, sneak it in. And now people are paying more for petrol, we're paying more for petrol than what they were promised by this government before and after the election. On the 14th of November last year, the Abbott government admitted, and I quote, "The data reveals the majority of job seekers do meet their participation requirements." And that was from someone who should know, or you think should know, because that was from the Assistant Minister for Employment, Luke Hartsucker, who went out there. So despite acknowledging this fact, this government feels the need to make these sledgehammer cruel changes that will impact severely on 4% of job seekers who do not, for whatever reason, meet their obligation. And it's not always just as simple as not turning up. So out of 2,687 non-compliance penalties last year, only 752 were concerned with job offers. The National Welfare Rights Network puts it eloquently in its submission on Indigenous Jobs and Training Review. Only a very small number of job seekers wilfully flout the rules, but their behaviour stigmatises all job seekers. It is both costly and unwise to build an engagement framework based on incorrect assumptions that all unemployed people are individually and generally malingerers. This out-of-touch government does not understand the difficulties for people living in areas such as the seat of McEwen, who are already doing it tough and are likely to be doing it a lot tougher because of the cruel and heartless measures in this budget, including, as I said, the fuel tax increase, which makes it more expensive for people to travel from A to B. The walk away by this government from the automotive industry, from SPC, from Qantas and other manufacturing across this country, in particular in regional and suburban areas, limits the opportunity to get gainful, to gain or regain employment. Now, just last week, my office was trying to assist a couple who, for health reasons and circumstances outside of their control, find themselves in their 50s and dependent on Centrelink payments. To fulfil their obligations, which for one of them is a 5-minute face-to-face meeting with staff, they have to drive from Kilmore to the Centrelink office in Seymour, a round trip of about 100 kilometres twice a month. It's a hefty expense on top of the added costs they now face with the GP tax to pay $7 to go to the doctors, the diagnostic services and medicines, all thanks to this government's budget of broken promises and, of course, as I said, the fuel tax. Through this bill, the government is seeking to impose harsher measures on job seekers. This is on top of the 6 months waiting period of no income support whatsoever before they become eligible for New Start and mandatory work for the dole. Under the former government, the former Labor government, the non-compliance measures introduced allowed job seekers the opportunity to re-engage in the participation process. We were successful in helping job seekers re-engage with their job service providers and in the process of participation while they look for work. These provisions also encourage job seekers to accept suitable offers for employment, penalising them if they refuse such work, while still allowing the discretion to waive the non-payment period if there was mitigating circumstances. And that's the key point here. Under Labor, there was some flexibility to enable those who, for whatever legitimate reason might have been out of their control, were unable to fill their requirements and still have the opportunity to state their case and receive these payments. Under this Liberal government, these people will be out without money, without the means to pay bills, put food on the table or go to the doctor. The Abbott government is turning its back on vulnerable Australians. The Prime Minister is refusing to help those who need it most. Labor believes these measures proposed by the government are unnecessarily harsh and actually discourage participation of job seekers serving non-payment periods. In McEwen, there are about 25,000 young people in the 18 to 29-year age bracket. And according to the Brotherhood of St Lawrence, Our Chance, My Future report, youth unemployment is as high as 17% in some areas, particularly in the regional areas. This is the 5th highest in Australia. So these amendments are going to directly affect people living in my community. There are so many ways that the Abbott government is making life difficult for young people. It's stopping welfare assistance and it cuts services to youth connections, which help young people find jobs. These amendments also ignore the reality for people with mental illness and indeed add to their problems. The job searching requirements for New Start payments are onerous for people referred to mental health support services and those who are struggling with organising the daily routines of their life. The consequences of these amendments will cause serious downward spiral for these people. Take, for example, a gentleman that we've been dealing with in my electorate who's 24 and must submit to regular work testing. He suffers from anxiety, depression and borderline personality disorder. This young man is demeaned and what little confidence he has is further undermined by work testing. Rather than feel like he's getting help and more confidence to try and gain employment, he feels disempowered by the continual tests and feels locked into a cycle of hopelessness. This young man is doing what he can to address his mental health issues, but he knows they're long-term issues and he has to learn to manage. He worries that he may never be well enough to work and struggles to get by on a basic income. The proposed amendments will undoubtedly forever lock this young man into that cycle of hopelessness. as the penalties will knock him down hard, both financially and emotionally. The government's amendments will also have a heavy impact on women fleeing domestic violence. A lady, a sole parent with 3 children working part-time. She was receiving parenting payments single. She was subject to violence in the home and so did not return Centrelink compliance forms on time. Her payments are terminated. She rang the call centre and attempted to have payments reinstated, but ultimately had to attend Centrelink to sort it out. This meant she took time off work. Her employment was already compromised because of these escalating family violence issues, and the employer began to lose patience. She had to seek food vouchers to feed her children until the payments were reinstated. Acting Deputy Speaker, overall, these harsh amendments are going to be detrimental to all those receiving essential payments through Centrelink. It is categorically unfair to target and punish all because of the apparent dishonesty of a few. And I refuse to let this government ruin the lives of vulnerable and disadvantaged people in our community. I will stand up for the people in my community who need support. So if you truly believe in a valued society, then your values should be to support the weakest and the vulnerable in their times of need.